What is up, guys? Spart here, and today we are here at our favorite PvP target dummy because we're going to beat them up a little bit. But basically, I'm showing you guys the Kyrian one-shot I do with Arcanosphere. So, in the last montage I did, basically I was just spamming this combo back to back if you need to see a few more examples of it. But today I just want to go over the build, the setup, kind of what's all going into it, and just give you a few tips here and there. So first things first, talents. These are the talents I pretty much always run. I really only ever change out Chronoshift for Ring of Frost in 3s usually. But everything else here is usually staying the same. And same for honor talents most of the time. I'm always running these three. I mean, might change massive is here and there for like a Klepto if I'm versing a Fire Mage or some little here and there. But 90% of the time it's always going to be staying that. So what we're doing is stacking the Radiant Spark debuff damage with Arcanosphere. If you don't know what Radiant Spark does, I cast it on the target, puts this dot on them. Every time I hit them, they get this stacking debuff, and that debuff only stacks up to 4 times, but they basically take increased damage. Like per spell I hit them with, the next spell is going to hit like an extra 18% harder. Normally baseline, that debuff is only 10%, but I got a conduit here that is basically increasing the damage of my Radiant Spark, like the damage bonus. So it's increasing it by an extra 8%, so instead of 10% per stack, it's 18%. So first stack is 18, 36, 54, and 72. Those are going to be like the damage amplifiers of each of these stacks. Ideally, you want to get this up to 3. 3 is kind of the sweet spot. 2 is alright, 4 is meh. But basically, it's not just Arcanosphere that's going to be doing the one-shot. You're going to also be comboing Arcane Barrage with it. And the reason for that is Arcane Barrage is going to be hitting just as hard, if not harder than Arcanosphere sometimes. But we're running a legendary, so every time I cast my Arcane Missiles on a target, I get this buff. That stacks up to 10 times. That increases the damage of my next Arcane Barrage. So basically an extra 80% damage on my Arcane Barrage on top of, the Radiant Spark that's going to be on the target. But that's basically the damage. So now for the setup, with Radiant Spark, people a lot of the time they just like to use like Presence of Mind. I mean, it's kind of a quick way to get up the stacks, but it takes more than half the debuff to get up to just 3 stacks, and then you barely have any time to cast your Arcanosphere. So what we're actually going to do to get that the stacks up there really quick are going to be Arcane Missiles. We're just going to be doing the Radiant Spark right into missiles to basically get that damage debuff up as fast as we can, because once we cast Radiant Spark, we're on a pretty short time period between that thing just running out on its own or a healer finding it on the target and find out that they actually need to dispel it, because this thing can be dispelled off the target, and once that happens, it's gone. The bright side is it's only a 30-second cooldown, so if you see it get dispelled early, well, you might just have to wait an extra 30 seconds to go for the kill on the target. But for the full setup, what you're always doing when you go for this, say you're fresh into an arena, you're just going in, getting the CC on the healer or whoever, and then you cast an Arcane Missiles. You're just getting your stacks up there for the first 3 casts. From there, cast Touch the Magi. You don't have to do your go in the Touch of the Magi. We're just purely using this to get our arcane charges up. It's the easiest way to do it instead of trying to send in an orb and maybe having to do an extra arcane explosion. I just prefer it this way. That's just what I do. You don't necessarily need the damage from this anyways, so it is an extra thing to cast. You can get locked out on it, but usually I'm not too worried about it. You can pretty easily see if I got a DK and Warrior on me, then sure, I'll go for Arcane Orb because they're stacked up. I know it's going to be easy stacks, but otherwise, if I'm at range, it doesn't take long to cast this. Honestly, if you wanted to cast this right off the gate, you could do that too. You don't have to cast your misses first thing if you want to just get your Arcane charges. The only downside is you really can't cast Barrage until you're actually ready to go then, because it's a long cooldown. So once you cast this, you're kind of taking Barrage out of the picture until you're ready to do your setup. But from there, so you got your stacks. Let's say you get CC on the healer or whoever, you cast your Radiant Spark, Arcane Missiles to get your 3 ticks, and then right into an Arcanosphere. And then right at the end, you cast your Arcane Power, and Arcane Barrage, and I totally forgot I equipped this. So I actually added an extra global accidentally. But yeah, normally when you cast Arcane Power, that's not on the global cooldown. Then you just cast Arcane Barrage like, immediately after it. And that's kind of the bright side with this burst, is that you don't have to pop Arcane Power until you're sure you want to fully commit. Like, so many things can go wrong with this. Like, your Radiant Spark could get dispelled, or let's say you get your Radiant Spark off and like a third of the way into your Arcanosphere cast, you get kicked on it. It's not the end of the world. Like, Arcanosphere, you'd have to wait another maybe 40 seconds for it to come off cooldown, but you still have your Arcane Power. If you get kicked or interrupted in the middle of this thing, you're not as in duck for 2 minutes. You have to wait a little bit, but you know, it's still a lot better waiting 40 seconds than a 2-minute cooldown. So it's not too bad. That's why I kind of like this. You know, it has its ups and downs, but you know, each side you kind of gotta weigh them out yourself. But that's what we're dealing with. So once Arcane Power comes off cooldown, I'll kind of show you guys what we're dealing with. But basically, that's the setup. And from there, it's just kind of watching your opponents, seeing if somebody's in CC, and just knowing when you can get this off. If you're not being trained, it's super easy, super simple to do. You're just kind of sitting in the back. You kind of want to be, if you're not being trained, you don't want to give them a reason to train you. So what I'm saying is, it may not seem like you're really doing that much. Like in the opener, you're just spamming a couple of missiles. You're not really doing too much damage. So a lot of people might just knock you off as something that's not a threat. Like, and then you're just going to come out of left field when you're good and ready and just blow somebody up from 100 to 0. So that's what I kind of like about this. You're playing possum a little bit there. But yeah, if you're getting trained though, it's a different story, and you just got to get some practice in with it. And from there, you know, experience is your best teacher. So that's really all you got to do with it. But we got Arcane Power. So let's pretend we're just going into a refresh. You go in, you get CC on the healer, and you just cast missiles. Cast the missiles a couple times until you get a few stacks. Touch the Magi, and let's just wait. Let's just wait for DRs. Let's say you go for like a half. You get a full stun on the healer. You can go for a Radiant Spark, cast your missiles to get the stacks up, and then immediately after that, cast your Arcanosphere, Arcane Power, and Arcane Barrage. And obviously, right there, like, you're never going to see a number that high, but geez, 130k Arcanosphere, that's got to translate somewhat to PvP, right? The highest crit I've ever seen in PvP with Arcanosphere is like 68k. But yeah, it's not uncommon, guys. Like, you're going to kill somebody without crits. If something crits with this, it's pretty much a guaranteed kill at this point. But usually if nothing crits, it's not the end of the world. You're still going to see like 2 30k hits back to back if everything goes well, or if there's like no damage reduction buffs on your enemy, like Iron Bark or something like that. Like, even pain suppression. Honestly, if I see a priest pop pain suppression like halfway through my cast, I might still commit like the Arcane Power to it, because one, I'm pretty sure my Arcane Power is on a shorter cooldown than their pain suppression. So worst case, I could always just wait another 2 minutes for a for sure kill without pain suppression, but it's still gonna chunk them pretty hard, and you might even get an extra cooldown out of them with your teammate on them with you. Like, it's not the end of the world if you see an Iron Bark at pain suppression, but if they pop it super early, then you know you can just cast your Arcanosphere without Arcane Power and just wait the extra 40 seconds, and you know, live to fight another day if you think you're going to get another setup. So another thing I forgot to cover was basically for getting this thing set up. Radiant Spark being dispelled is kind of your #1 enemy. I mean, you can kind of work around cakes, you know, that stuff is trackable through Omnibar. But dispels is usually kind of the hardest thing to keep track of. So I mean, you either gotta, you know, obviously you can just get CC on the healer and go from there. But let's say you're facing a Resto Druid or a Shaman or something that's just really annoying and really hard to get a solid poly on, just polymorph the off target, like the DPS that you're not going. Let's say I'm facing a Rogue and a Warrior, and we're killing the Rogue, but we just need a good setup. I can do a polymorph on the Warrior, and either the healer is going to dispel him, and my Radiant Spark is just going to have free reign on top of that Rogue, or you know, the guy commit to dispelling the Radiant Spark, which it's rare to meet a healer that's going to target dispel a Radiant Spark over a polymorph, or a full polygon of DPS. So yeah, that's just one of the ways you can bait. You can also bait it with the Maledict. I usually run the badge for an extra damage basically, but if you want to run the Maledict for an easy dispel, you can also do that. I hate how long of a cooldown it is, but you know, if you know you can get a kill, or if you really want to commit to it, you have no doubt in your mind that you can, you know, do a kill, just use this to bait one free dispel, and then just do your Radiant Spark, go from there. You don't necessarily have to have CC on the healer when you do this setup, because most healers aren't going to anticipate their healer or their DPS going from 100% health to nothing in like the span of a global. So here we got an example, just basically a skirmish I went into just to kind of show this a little bit. So it's just random people I'm playing threes with, but basically going in, just kind of waiting to stealth here. Not too much going on at the start. So I go for a kick on the druid, and right off the bat I cast Massive Viz to get the free Touch of the Magi cast on him. I just decided to go for it there because I had Mass Invis. I wasn't really, I guess I could have gone for a poly on the druid, but at that point I was just worried about getting my stacks built up and just getting this set up as soon as I could. So from here, just kind of beating into this guy. I was about to cast Radiant Spark there, but I saw he had his Shield of Vengeance up, and I guess why he popped it that early, I just figured we can burn it down a little bit before I pop the one shot. If we can burn through it like we did there, then perfect. I don't have to worry about that thing. At this point, the only thing that's really going to save him is going to be, well, they still got a couple things. So the mage could kick me, but in all this, the mage didn't really seem to be doing too much, so I wasn't worried about him like actually picking up the play and just being the one that kicked me, or pop bubble. Iron Bark wasn't really going to save this guy that much. So from here, right there, I casted my Radiant Spark on this guy, got my missile stacks up there, and then the Druid is just off in kitty form. Like, he's off in La La Land doing his feral thing. He's not too worried about his teammates dying, which why would he be? Everybody's at 100%. But I got my stacks on this guy, just casting an Arcanosphere, and do a full send right there. And, hit him twice for like 27, 28k. Yeah, 27, 24k, and then I just do a little Fire Blast at the end to finish him off. Or I don't even get the Fire Blast off, but yeah, it just kind of falls over. I mean, Pallies, they're really fun to go because of that. They really don't have much utility to stop me, so that's why I really like going Pallies. But yeah, like, stuff could have gone wrong there. I could have been kicked. I could have been bashed by the Druid, but he decided to leap in on the Priest there. I think he used his bash earlier, so it didn't even matter, but yeah, I mean, it's literally as simple as that sometimes, guys. You just go in, they forget about you, you do your cast, and you just blow somebody up out of left field. Like, that Pally wasn't worried about dying. He was at 100% chasing a guy down with wings. Yeah, and that monk didn't have cocoon, so he's like, free kill, just start him here. But little did he know, somebody was going to be bursting harder. So here, I actually have a clip from the montage. I'm just going to kind of cover a little bit of what's going on, but basically this is a scenario where I'm being the one trained in this situation. Like, both the DPS are looking at me, so it's going to be a lot harder to pull this off, but this is kind of what's going on. So right here I'm in black, kind of running out of defenses. We're running on fumes. We've been in this game for a little under 2 minutes right now, but it's looking pretty rough. Like, BM Warrior is going to be a lot of damage. It's going to be really hard to heal through, so we just gotta do as much as we can to live, but we are going to go for a kill really soon because we're not going to last the long game. So I here get shattered, go and Mass Invis right away and just blink away, and actually go for a poly on the Druid because I think, sometimes in Mass Invis you can get a cheeky poly, like if you think they're going to come out of air form or something like that. But I don't end up getting it, unfortunately. But here, I was going to go for a Radiant Spark just to kind of YOLO because I'm getting frustrated. Like, I can't land too much CC on this Druid, so waiting for a poly on the Druid is really not something I can rely on. But here, I actually fucked up pretty bad. I missed the kick on the clone just blatantly. He didn't even juke. I just flat out missed it, and that's it. Kind of happens, but you deal with it and you move on. But I'm in the barrier, so I'm living a little bit here. And so instead, I go for a poly on the Hunter. I'm just like, I just want to bait a dispel from this Druid. If I can just get that, then I think I can get a full burst off. Like, this Hunter's kick is coming back really soon. The Warrior's kick I'm not too worried about because I can just blink around to avoid that. So the Hunter's kick is what I'm mainly looking at. And if I can get a full Kyrian Spark on this guy, or Radiant Spark, I think there's a good chance that he could just blow up, regardless of the druid being in CC or not. But druid is just there shackling me. He's not dispelling his hunter, so he's letting that full full poly just, I cast it right in his face, and he's just sitting there taking it. So I'm like, okay, well, he doesn't have a trinket, so we're doing our go. So as soon as I cast poly, land it, do my Radiant Spark, and right there, it's real subtle, but basically the warrior did have his he did have kick, but sometimes when you like chain spells back to back, like if I were to cast Radiant Spark or Arcane Missiles together there, there's a good chance like you might have pre-kicked my next ability, just knowing that like normally I would just cast something right after it, and he could pre-kick it and just kind of fuck me over, and then our whole go would kind of be screwed, because then by the time I'm out of lockout, the hunter would have his kickback. My Radiant Spark is on cooldown, so we basically have to wait another 30 seconds. So something little like that can really make or break a game. He didn't end up kicking me there, but a lot of the times if you're casting stuff back to back, somebody's gonna like pre-kick your next thing, just knowing it'll fuck you up. They don't need to know what you're doing. They just know if they see Radiant Spark, you're gonna be casting something important. But he doesn't kick me. I get my stacks up there on the hunter. I only get 2 stacks instead of 3, which is no big deal. Like I said, he's still gonna chunk down a pretty good amount. And then I do like a half cast of Arcanosphere. Now the hunter's kick is off cooldown, but it literally just came off of cooldown. This is kind of one of the things you can get away with at lower rating. Not everybody's going to really pay attention to their kick, especially if it's a longer cooldown, so he's not going to know like right the second it comes off of cooldown. Like he could have definitely stopped this, but he's actually a little bit late on the reaction, and you know, a 1 second delay or half second delay is sometimes all it takes between, you know, the mean of living or dying in this game. So get the half channel Arcanosphere off, and we get pretty lucky that both of them crit, so I'm just able to solo them there. But I think the total damage, so like these 2 crit back to back, so the total is 53 and 26k, so basically 80k damage through double crits. Even if that didn't crit, that still would have been 40k damage, and he had about, what was it, like 48k? Yeah, he had 48k health. So even if neither of those crit, he would have still been down to like 8k health. And would he have lived? Maybe. You never know. My shaman might have thrown in a big shock or something that just, you know, one shots him for 10k. The point is, you never know until you actually try it, but he still would have been pretty low there, and that would have been an easy turtle. I don't remember if he had it or not, but this is just the stuff, like I said, you gotta watch out for. Experience is going to be your best teacher, so the more of these games you get in, the more you learn you can get away with like a shortened Arcanosphere. Like if the hunter didn't have his kick there, I could have easily double blinked. Like the warrior charged me, I could have blinked again and got an extra maybe 25% more damage in my Arcanosphere. So it's just stuff like that you gotta watch out for, and just learn what you can get away with and do, and that's really all it is. So I realize I've rambled on a little bit longer than I'd like here, but I hope you guys kind of got the gist of the video or the setup here. If you have any questions about it, feel free to type down below if I forgot something, but I think I pretty much covered all I really needed to. So yeah, it should be it, guys, but hope you have fun with this, and until next time, this is Spart out.